Well, the fact of the matter is motivation doesn't matter, doesn't weigh in, carries no weight. It's not part of the program. It really isn't. It's just not part of the program. Being motivated is not part of the program. And look, going through SEAL training, I have often said you don't learn anything going through SEAL training. You don't learn anything. It's just, you're just gonna be wet, cold, and miserable. But we talked about this on a recent podcast. There are things that you learn in basic SEAL training that stick with you. One of them is that motivation is worthless. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Because what's going to happen going through SEAL training is you are going to do things that you 100% do not want to do at that moment. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. You've been wet, cold, and miserable. You get dragged up onto the beach. You climb up onto the beach. You get underneath your boat for 7 minutes. You're huddled up with your guys. You're trying to create body heat to get a little bit of warmth. And you start feeling a little bit of warmth. And then the instructor's like, get back in the water. No one in that class wants to get back in the water. 0 people. 0 people want to get back in the water. The motivation level to get back in the water is 0. It might even be -9, right? It is low. And guess what you're going to do? Get out from under the boat. You're going to get back in the water. So what you realize is that motivation doesn't matter at all. What matters is the discipline that you're going to execute what you're being told at that time to execute. Now, the other thing that's happening in SEAL training is, believe it or not, you have a lot of freedom. You have a lot of freedom in SEAL training. You get weekends off. You get a lot of weekends off. Sometimes you get nights off. You have time. You can go right. You're in one of the most beautiful places in the world, Coronado, California. There's stores out there. There's little bars guys can go to. Then you go from Coronado, you can get a cab. Back in the day, you can get a cab. Now you can get an Uber or a Lyft or whatever. You can go right over into downtown San Diego. Now you got clubs, you got bars, you got things going on. You got women you can chase around. You can go all the way up to Pacific Beach. There's colleges that pour into Pacific Beach, and there's all that mayhem to get into. And guess what? If you want to go out and get into that mayhem, you can. But that costs some people. Some guys going through that training, that costs them the ability to make it through training. They either get in trouble or they're not ready for that 4-mile timed run on Monday morning. But those temptations are there. And what protects you from those temptations is discipline. That's what it is. So motivation isn't what we are relying on. And we can't rely on motivation because, like I said, if you and I got to get in the water to go conduct an operation, the motivation to do that will be 0, might even be -9, might be -12, might be -1,000. And you know what? Doesn't matter. You and I are going to go do what we have to do. But going through SEAL training, you're having stuff imposed upon you. This is what you will do now. In a lot of ways, that's easier, right? It's easier to do that. It's easier to get put in the water because you're being told to get put in the water. But what they do is you have those weekends off. You have those times you can get in trouble. You have a 4-mile timed run. There's no pace setting. As a matter of fact, this is a reason they do this. You don't have a watch on. They don't let you have a watch in SEAL training. So you do a 4-mile timed run. You have to make a certain time. You have to make a certain time. You don't know what the time is because you don't know what time it is because you don't have a watch. So you know what you have to do? Run as hard as you can. Same thing with a swim. What do? Swim as hard as you can. Same thing with the obstacle course. The motivation won't be there. 3.5 miles into a 4-mile time run, you're dying. You feel like you're gonna die. What do you gotta do? You gotta have the discipline to keep pushing. Otherwise, you're not gonna make the time. So they develop this intrinsic discipline you should carry into the teams so that you continue to stay on the path and it doesn't take a person telling you that you need to do something. You do it anyways. You don't do it because you're motivated. You do it because you're disciplined. And that's what we have in our minds. What's interesting is, in our minds, we are the general on the battlefield. In our minds, we are the general. We are also the soldier that has to execute. That's what we have in our brains. You come up with a plan. I'm going to work out today. That's the general telling you to work out. The soldier, that's you also, has to go and then execute on that. That's the discipline. And listen, in a normal, real military organization, the leaders put out the word to the soldiers have to execute. Otherwise, everything falls apart. It's the same thing in your mind. The leader in your mind, the general, puts out the word on what needs to be executed. It's you, the soldier, that has to go make that happen. So you get trained, just like you get trained in Marine Corps boot camp or Army boot camp or Navy boot camp, that you're going to respond to those direct orders when they come. You have to train yourself. You have to train the soldier in your mind to obey those direct orders when they come, and that is the foundation of discipline.